Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Jordan Peterson breakdown discussion video. Today we have, what do we have here? First we have, are your desires genuine? And so we're going to take a look at this. I haven't heard any of this before, so this will be a fresh take from me, and we're going to see what sort of insights we can gather from it. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it.
Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. This is a commentary from Matthew Henry, who is a nonconformist minister and author. Cheerful and obliging manners in showing kindness are great ornaments to piety. Though our condescending Lord vouchsafes not personal visits to us, yet still by his Spirit he stands at the door and knocks. When we are inclined to open, he deigns to enter. And by his gracious consolations he provides a rich feast of which we partake with him. This is from Revelations 3:20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. Well, the hyperlinked nature of those quotes is quite obvious. There's 10 or 15 things being said at the same time, right? One is a reference to the idea that if you ask for something, it will be given to you, right?
Okay, so we're going to stop there, and I just want to look at these for just another minute. So, be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Okay. Cheerful and obliging manners in showing kindness are great ornaments to piety. So piety being, I guess, I don't know, the term is associated with religion in my head, but we're going to double check that. Yeah, the piety, the quality of being religious or reverent. And that's an interesting way to phrase that. Cheerful and obliging manners in showing kindness are great ornaments to piety. So, and what's an ornament? You know, an ornament is an object that we use to decorate. Generally speaking, you can think of like decorating a Christmas tree, but you can also think of decorating pikes with the heads of your slain enemies, right? You know, the decapitated heads are also ornaments. But so I think the best way to describe an ornament is an object that we use for some type of decoration. So, and I would say intentionally, ornaments are intentionally used. So it says, cheerful and obliging manners in showing kindness are great ornaments to piety. So cheerful and obliging manners basically being like treating your guests as, you know, guests. Offering them food and drink, shelter, and kindness. But the fact that they're ornaments, I think, is an interesting way to conceptualize it. Because it grates a little bit against what I feel, in that cheerful and obliging manners should occur spontaneously. You know, they're not something that you put on for guests. You know, they should be part of your very nature. And so cheerful and obliging manners in showing kindness, I would say, are the fruits of piety. Might be a better way to phrase that, in my opinion. So, though our condescending Lord, what is that word? Vouchsafes. Is that what it is? Vouchsafes? Not personal visits to us, yet still by his Spirit he stands at the door and knocks. That's deep. We got to look up what vouchsafes mean. What is vouchsafes? Vouchsafes, to grant or furnish, often in a gracious or condescending manner. To give by way of reply. Okay. Though our condescending Lord vouchsafes not personal visits to us, so our Lord makes no personal visits to us? Is that, yet still by his Spirit he stands at the front door and knocks. So he might not come visit us personally, but he has others fulfill his plan for him. When we are inclined to open, he deigns to enter. And by his gracious consultations, he provides a rich feast, of which we partake with him. Okay, so there's my first thought is that be open to new opportunities. And don't be quick to judge a situation as a crisis or as a catastrophe or as irrelevant to your own situation. If somebody comes and knocks at your door and you look out and he looks like a beggar to you, and you say, well, I'm not going to open up because a beggar can't do anything for me. This little blurb here, I would say, is a warning against making those kinds of judgments. Because he looks like a beggar, but maybe he isn't. You don't know. And you won't know unless you open your door. Okay. And so the last two little bullet points there say, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. That's kind of deep. So there's this idea in spirituality that, I think it was Rumi. There's this poem, was something like, I've been knocking on the door of enlightenment for a long time, only to realize I've been knocking from inside. So it says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice. See, and it's interesting, this says, I stand at the door and knock, but if any man hear my voice, not hear my knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him. I will sup with him and he with me. So there's this element of like, you have to be the one to open the door. I mean, it's like, very matrixy kind of thing. You have to open the door. God is knocking at the door, but you have to open the door. I think that's kind of interesting. So be not forgetful to entertain strangers, cheerful and obliging manners and showing kindness are great ornaments. And though our condescending Lord vouchsafes not personal visits to us, he still stands at the door and knocks. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure like we could sit here and dig into it even more, but I think we got some of the important insights out of it. So let's see where we go. Let's see where he goes with
Yet
us.
still by his Spirit he stands at the door and knocks. When we are inclined to open, he deigns to enter. And by his gracious consolations he provides a rich feast of which we partake with him. This is from Revelations 3:20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. Well, the hyperlinked nature of those quotes is quite obvious. There's 10 or 15 things being said at the same time, right? One is a reference to the idea that if you ask for something, it will be given to you, right? It's a very strange idea, but I like that idea a lot, and I believe, in my experience, that has been true. If it was that I wanted what I was asking for, because that's the real issue, right? Because
yes, beautiful. Hold on, I just need a minute to digest that. He says, and again, I didn't get the whole like ask and it'll be given from this, so I'm not sure where that came from. Because this isn't about, I don't see anything about asking in these I guess quotes. I see there's a reference to cheerful and obliging manners being important, and there's a reference to not judging a situation based on the way that it looks to you, and there's a reference to God being the one knocking at the door, or if you prefer, your own enlightened nature being what's knocking at the door. And so the feast that the visitor provides would be your own enlightenment. But there's no I'm not getting the whole ask and then it's given, but we can come back to that, I guess. I really do like the where I think he's going with this, and that's if you really want it, right? Because that's always the thing. That's always the trick. That's always the caveat to the whole. You can have anything that you want, or you can be anything that you want to be, right? As a millennial, I got that a lot growing up. You can do anything you want. You can be anything you want to be. It wasn't until I was mid-20s that I realized that I didn't have a clue what I wanted. And so knowing what you want and being clear about what your desires are it's absolutely a prerequisite to earning them, to manifesting them, however you want to look at it. Let's keep going.
15 things being said at the same time, right? One is a reference to the idea that if you ask for something, it will be given to you, right? It's a very strange idea, but I like that idea a lot, and I believe, in my experience, that has been true. If it was that I wanted what I was asking for, because that's the real issue, right? Because the question is, if you want something, what does it mean to want it? And what it means is to sacrifice whatever is necessary to get it, because
to sacrifice whatever is necessary to get it. Interesting. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I buy that 100%. I'm going to chew on it for a minute. I mean, I guess if you sacrifice lesser desires, if you want to get in shape, then, and that's your strongest desire, and so you sacrifice the lesser desires of junk food and overeating and this, that, and the other, and lazy, sedentary lifestyle kind of thing. You could say that. But I would say more deeply that genuine desire, like a real, authentic desire, requires no sacrifice, because living in such a way that you're committed to the thing that you want. Ooh, I don't know. That one's tough to chisel out. I'm going to hold off on that for a minute.
Otherwise you don't want it. And so there's an equation here, and I'm not claiming its ultimate accuracy, but the equation is something like, you don't want it unless you're willing to sacrifice for it. And if you don't...
I hate that word, sacrifice. What do you mean by sacrifice? What do we mean by sacrifice? Because if I want to play guitar, like I guess it has to do with the way that you define the goal, right? So if you want to play guitar, that's one thing. If you want to learn how to play guitar, that's one thing. But if you want to be the best at guitar, that's a different thing entirely. And so if you want to be the best at guitar, then you will have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice lots of other things in the pursuit of that one singular goal. However, I always get caught up in this question of, what's the point of being the best at something? And why isn't it enough to be fulfilled? Right? Obviously it is. Obviously it's enough to be fulfilled with what you're doing. You don't have to be the best. And a lot of times your incessant need to become the best keeps you from being the best that you can be at something. Right? Because you put unnecessary burdens of expectations on yourself, things that you have no business carrying around that ultimately weigh you down. They create mental noise, emotional clutter, slow you down, and create hesitation and cloud your judgment and perception. And so when all of that stuff happens, you can't be your best because you're too distracted by your own projections of what you think it means to be the best. But I don't think there's any sacrifice for genuine desire. I think genuine desire is it's interesting because I've been doing this for a while now, and the better I get at this, the more I realize that sacrifice is a perception and not a reality. Am I sacrificing time right now to make this video? Am I sacrificing other things I could be doing to make this video? Am I how much am I sacrificing? What exactly am I sacrificing, to do what I'm trying to do? What even am I trying to do? I don't care. I haven't even stopped to think about it, to be honest with you. I just enjoy whatever this is. And so I'm like with it right now. And that's kind of the thing, is like, I love to be with it. So is it really sacrifice? Am I really sacrificing anything? Or is it simply that because I'm in tune with my own desire, the action emerges spontaneously and provides fulfillment and enjoyment and all of the things that we think we'll get once we accomplish whatever goal that we have set out for us. Like what's the point of sacrifice? Like, what's the point of sacrifice? If you're trying to do something to get somewhere, why? Like, why? What do you think is going to happen once you get there? Right? Obviously, you think that there's going to be something that's worthwhile at the end of what you're doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. And usually that thing is like something external, right? Money, validation, success, fame, notoriety, like whatever it is. And, there's this like unconscious, I think, belief that once we get that thing, then, we'll feel fulfilled. And so if you think about it, if you're real honest with yourself about it, you realize that the fulfillment is what you want. You want to feel whole. You want to feel complete. You want to feel present. You want to feel alive. You want to feel like you're part of this, not being taken apart by this. And so why is it that, like, at this point, from this point of view, the idea of sacrifice is no longer necessary. It doesn't really exist because there's nothing to sacrifice, because there's nowhere to go to. Like, we're not trying to get anywhere because we're already here. We're already where we want to be. We already have what we want. We already have what we want, is to be the embodiment of our own desire. That's really what we want. We don't want to achieve desire. No, we want to embody our desire. And so, from this point of view, sacrifice is a hollow concept. It holds no weight. It means nothing. There's nothing to sacrifice. Decisions will be made. Choices will be made. Things will come to an end. People will come into your life. People will come out of your life. And at the end of it, this body, you, will die. So what? Who cares? Like, all that stuff is true. So what's the point in delaying the desire? What's the point in delaying the gratification? What's the point in putting off your own fulfillment until you feel like you've earned it? Like, you earned it. You're here. Like, you made it. Good job. And if you can't feel fulfilled right here, right now, in this moment, then there's nothing that's going to make you feel fulfilled. No amount of desire, no amount of accomplishment, no amount of success is going to keep you fulfilled if you can't be fulfilled right here, right now.
Want it, you're not going to get it because you're scattered. But if you do want it and you make the proper sacrifices, then God only knows what might happen. And see, one of the things I really like about the existential philosophers is their emphasis on personal responsibility. Many of them had an emphasis on the role that people had in shaping their own destiny. For the existentialists, and I think this was a consequence of the religious substructure of philosophical thinking, it was self-evident that life was tragic and bitter. And fair enough, but that isn't where it ended. The next issue was, well, there are better and worse ways of dealing with that, and the better way of dealing with the fact that life is tragic and bitter is to posit the self you could be and live authentically in relationship to that. And then the next issue, and this is something Kierkegaard talked about, particularly when he talked about the necessity of being a knight of faith, is that the thing is, and this is, I think, part of life that's the intractable adventure. No one can take the adventure of life away from you. They can't do it with good advice, for example, because no one can demonstrate to you that if you straighten yourself out and aim at what you want and make the proper sacrifices, that your life will turn out in the manner that you might want it to turn out. It isn't in anyone else's purview to make that judgment. The only person that can possibly figure that out is you. It's something that can't be stolen from you. I would say it's your destiny. It's a destiny that cannot be stolen from you.
Sure.
And you can forego it. You can say, well, I'm not willing to put in the effort because what if I fail?
Right.
Well, first of all, if you don't put in the effort, you will fail.
Yes.
Because life is hard.
Sure.
And it takes everything out of you to do it properly. So you will fail. And if...
What do we mean? What do we mean by do it properly? It'll take everything out of you to do it properly. To do life properly? How do you do life properly? I mean, I guess it goes back to what we were saying before about whether or not you're fulfilled in what you're doing, right? And so if that's how, you know what, that's how I'm going to define doing life properly. Is like doing life properly means you are fulfilled right here, right now, in this moment. Okay, you're not waiting for things to come. You're not waiting to get somewhere else so you can then feel better. You're not waiting for your life situation to improve so that then your suffering will ease. No, you figured out. You figured it out. How to feel fulfilled no matter what your circumstances are. And that's a difficult thing to wrap your head around, because there is a horrible amount of pain that's possible, in life. But to extrapolate that pain and then make ultimate judgments about reality and about life itself is irresponsible. And you would only do it if you haven't looked deeply enough into your own nature. And if you haven't seen clearly what's really going on.
If you make the proper sacrifices, you might fail. That's why I like the ambiguity in the story of Cain and Abel, because we're never really told why God rejects Cain's offerings.
He rejects Cain's offerings because Cain isn't authentic. Cain is watching what Abel is doing and then mimicking without tending to his own internal emotional landscape first, right? Abel is fulfilled in his doing, which breeds prosperity. Cain believes that his fulfillment is dependent on prosperity, which only breeds despair.
There's hints that Cain maybe isn't doing as good a job as he should, and he certainly gets bitter about it, but there's no smoking pistol. It doesn't say, well, Cain is a bad guy, and he made terrible sacrifices, so God rejected him. You never...
No, it's not about that. It's about the internal landscape. And I actually really like that story because it functions almost like a Zen story in a way, to where it's like real kind of sparse on details, but there's something profound in it. And that profundity is that if you aren't fulfilled with what you have now, no amount of work, no amount of sacrifice, and no amount of effort is going to change that. You will always be unfulfilled. And then, you project that unfulfillment onto the object of your, what would you say, jealousy, I guess, or maybe envy. Yeah.
No, Cain might have been working pretty damn hard and things still didn't work out for him. And
I'm sure Cain was working way harder than Abel was, because when you're fulfilled, you don't feel like you're doing work at all. You don't feel like you're putting out, I don't feel like I'm putting out any effort right now. It's kind of fun. It's beautiful. And you get the most productivity. You get the most momentum moving, right, from this state. You don't force things, right? Life doesn't force anything. Why do you think you have to force stuff?
I think that ambiguity is appropriate in the story because that ambiguity is in life.
It is in life, and it's also the key to understanding the story.
You'd be a fool to say that everything always works out for everyone if they just do things right.
Well, there's no way to do anything right, because right and wrong are objective concepts that don't exist outside of our own moral judgments.
I think that's a very careless thing to say, given how much tragedy and catastrophe there is in the world and how much of it seems to be undeserved. But that still has very little bearing, I think, on your own individual adventure and the necessity for opening the door to who you could be, and the necessity to do that seriously. And I do believe, and I think that's why this most impossible of verses, knock and the door will open, why that's believable is that I have never met anyone who couldn't hypothesize a better them in some manner. All they had to do was ask. It's like, well, how could you be better? Think, well, here's 3 ways. It's like,
okay, how could I be better? Yeah, I mean, there are things that I could do to improve, sure. But that's not really, like, no matter the improvements that I make, it's not going to have any bearing on my level of fulfillment to this moment. It's like I wouldn't be more fulfilled if I were better at things. No. It's because I'm fulfilled that I become better.
It's no problem, right? You can think about that in no time flat. Maybe it's small ways, but you can almost always at least think of something stupid that you're doing that you could quit.
Sure.
And so that means that you do have this, it's a strange thing in people that we have this built-in capacity to posit a higher self and then to move towards it. And maybe that's part of where the religious instinct really came from. Speaking like really reductionistically, like as a materialist, as an evolutionary psychologist, we have this notion of the transcendent ideal, right? That seems to be pervasive across cultures. Well, maybe that's the ultimate manifestation of the human proclivity to be able to posit an ideal at all and to move forward. You posit an ideal.
All right, hold on.
Okay.
Big words, man.
Pervasive across cultures. We have this notion of the transcendent ideal, right? That seems to be pervasive across cultures. Well, maybe that's the ultimate manifestation of the human proclivity to be able to posit an ideal at all.
Okay, we gotta go back further.
But you can always, it's like, it's no problem, right? You can think about that in no time flat. Maybe it's small ways, but you can almost always at least think of something stupid that you're doing that you could quit. And so that means that you do have this, it's a strange thing in people that we have this built-in capacity to posit a higher self and then to move towards it. And maybe that's part of where the religious instinct really came from. Speaking like really reductionistically, like as a materialist, as an evolutionary psychologist, we have this notion of the transcendent ideal, right? That seems to be pervasive across cultures. Well, maybe that's the ultimate manifestation of the human proclivity to be able to posit an ideal at all. And to move forward, you posit an ideal. Okay, that you need that to move forward. Well, if you can posit an ideal, why can't you posit the ultimate ideal? Well, if you can, then instantly you've got a religious sensibility, instantly. And so maybe that's because I've posited.
Can you posit the ultimate ideal, though? I mean, can you? Can you? What can you? I mean, you know, I'll give the show away a little bit. You can, yeah, you can. And it shocks you when you realize what it is.
Like, as a biologist, what the hell is the basis of the religious instinct? Because the idea that it's mere superstition, like we can just dispense with that. That's wrong.
Yeah,
it's a human universal. You can evoke.
Look, I'm not religious. I don't subscribe to religion in any form, but it's not superstition. At the basis of it is, I think what he's kind of scratching at the surface here.
Religious experiences all sorts of ways. So we're not going to play that game. There's some reason that instinct exists. And the first thing to do with it is to try to reduce it to something that's biological and leave it at that, not to mess with the metaphysics.
Yeah,
but it certainly could be the case that it's the ultimate extension of our capacity to posit an ideal. And we also might say, well, that's good enough because, well, the ideal.
The ultimate capacity of our ability to posit an ideal, the religious instinct. I don't agree. I think that's wrong. I think the religious instinct comes from the sense that we have that there's something about reality that we're missing. There's something about reality that you're missing. I think this is where the religious instinct comes from. And so that instinct is the motivation to stimulate your search for the ultimate ideal of reality.
Moves you forward, it fills your life with meaning. There's no doubt about that, because it is in the movement towards your ideal that life's meaning is to be attained.
Yes, exactly. And See, we've been talking about this the whole time. It's not in attaining the thing. It's in the movement towards it. It's in you're fulfilled in the moment now, not when you get there, not in the future. No, you're not fulfilled then. If you can't be fulfilled now, you're not going to be fulfilled then. And you're destined to be Cain.
And then the question is, well, how much meaning is there in moving forward towards an ultimate ideal? Well, more meaning, even though it's more difficult. How much? Well, that's the open question.
Earthly world. Chilling. Damn, that is a sweet earth, you might say. Wrong. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed it. That was fun for me. Hope it was fun for you. Hope you got something out of it. If you did, leave a comment, like, subscribe, because we're going to be doing these a lot. I like to do them on stream too. So if you want to come check out the Twitch channel, please feel free to do so. And we will catch you in the next one.